Hello, and welcome to the Learning Activity Proposal tutorial. In this video, we will be reviewing how to formally submit a proposal for learning activities in your community. For these proposals, as well as lockouts and duty logs, HRL uses a program cleverly titled RAS. To access RAS, you'll visit studentaffairs.uncg.edu/RAS. You'll then log in using your UNCG credentials. And you should see your community name listed here, so you're going to click on your community. And my interface is going to look a little bit different from yours because I have administrator access, but you should see these three items: building logs, learning activity proposals, and the lockout form. So we're going to click on learning activity proposals and then submit a proposal. Now, before you begin filling out the form, we do recommend that you type your responses into a Word document and save it to your computer. That way, should your computer unexpectedly log out or lose internet connection while you're submitting the information, you won't lose everything that you just typed. And that's especially useful for some of the more detailed questions we're going to get to below. So I have actually gone ahead and done just that for my example program that I'm going to use for this exercise. So I'm going to pull that up here on the right side of the screen so we can look at it as we go along. Now, the first thing we want to look at is the title of your proposed learning activity. It's important that you take the time to think of a creative title that's really going to catch your residents' attention. In many cases, you want your title to give your residents what the program's about. For example, you might have a program called Diversity Cupcakes. On the other hand, you might want to add some mystery to your title in order to lure residents into attending. For example, you might title a program simply, What If? And then your residents are going to come wondering, what is this all about? So for our particular example here, I have chosen the Build-A-Bowl Ice Cream Social, trademark pending. Do not steal that from my building because we will probably use it this year. So as you can see, I'm sort of doing a play here off of Build-A-Bear workshop. For type of activity, of course, we want to choose the type of activity that is relevant here. Your fear activities, which are for your floor or your area for which you're responsible. Building learning activities, of course, are for the entire building. And the campus events are those events that you take your students to on UNCG's campus. So in this particular case, this is going to be a building learning activity because we are doing it for the entire building. Step 2 is you want to pick a date and time for your activity, and when selecting your date and time, you want to be mindful of a few things. Is this generally a good date and time for your residents? Are there any other learning activities or meetings taking place in your building during that time? Is the space you need even available? Does the time conflict with larger HRL or RHA initiatives? As a general rule, RA should not plan activities that conflict with RHA meetings or programs in order to support other initiatives of the department. Finally, you want to consider your own availability during that time. It is probably not a good idea to schedule a peer learning activity the day before a major exam. In addition, your supervisor may have further expectations about scheduling, such as not being able to host a learning activity when you're on duty. So as we can see here, the date that I have chosen for our example activity is August 16th, 2015. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that here. And the time is at 7 p.m. And you want to make sure that you are choosing the correct AM or PM for your learning activity. I don't think any of you would actually want to host a program at 7 a.m., so make sure you get that correct. Next, you're going to want to choose the location for your activity. And again, you want to be very mindful here and thoughtful in selecting a space that meets the needs of your planned activity. Is the space large enough? Do you need access to technology or other equipment? And perhaps most importantly, is the space even available? Some of our residence hall spaces, especially classroom space, must be reserved for your supervisor in advance to ensure another group is not using them. And the reservation process would be here in our next box. So once again, consult with your supervisor to determine whether or not a space that you want to use requires an advanced location. So the locations that I have chosen here are the Reynolds Common Rooms and the Reynolds Recreation Room. And I happen to know that those spaces do not require a reservation in advance, so I'm going to put none. Moving on to our next step is the shopping list. Now, this is a critical part of the proposal and one of the ones most likely to upset your supervisor if you don't complete it thoroughly. Your shopping list should be very detailed and include exact descriptions and quantities of the items you wish your supervisor to purchase. As you see noted on the form here, if you want a certain brand, you need to say so, otherwise you are likely to get the cheapest option. Remember, budgets are not infinite and not every chocolate bar will be Godiva. So I am going to go ahead and copy and paste this over here. Some other things that you want to consider with your shopping list are that most CRLs will shop at Walmart, Target, Harris Teeter, or Amazon.com. If your item cannot be purchased at one of those places, make sure you do your research and let your supervisor know where they can find it. Some CRLs also have specific expectations regarding purchase items. For example, a lot of our CRLs will not purchase pizza. Talk with your supervisor to find out what specific expectations they have for purchasing, as well as any budget restrictions you may face. Finally, I want to encourage you to think about ways to make your activity more sustainable. If you provide food, for example, consider having students bring their own plate or bowl instead of using paper products. Moving on to step 5, type of promotion. Describe how you are going to advertise the event. And by advertisement, I don't mean simply creating another 8.5 by 11 flyer, because we all know how ineffective those would be amidst the 700 other flyers that get posted in our building on a regular basis. This is an opportunity to really get those creative juices flowing. Some other means of advertisement might include social media, large posters in the shape of something relevant to the event, door hangers, small cheap giveaways with the date and time of the event, and the most effective means of all, telling people about it, which is what we call viral advertising. This is another reason why it's important to form relationships with your residents. The better they know you, the more likely they are to support you in your event. So in our example, some types of promotion I've come up with are a giant poster in the lobby shaped like an ice cream bowl with the title, date, time, and location of the event. Handing out spoons, perhaps in the lobby as students are coming in the building, with the event information written on the stem. Then you can tell the students to bring that spoon to the event, and they already have it. And then lastly, posting the information to the building Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever forms of social media you happen to use in your community. So you'll notice here I have 3 ideas, and none of which are an 8.5 by 11 flyer. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this over into my box here. The next item you'll see here is copies required. So in the event that you do need any sort of printouts for your program, you need your supervisor to print something for you, you need to indicate the number of copies that you require here. Don't forget to actually send what you need printed to your supervisor, because we can't print it if we don't have it. And in some communities, your SRA may actually have responsibility for printing, so make sure that you're clear on that. In addition, you want to specify the deadline by which you need your printed materials in order to advertise sufficiently in advance. So because I'm not doing any kind of flyers here, I don't need any copies, so I'm just going to put 0. Moving on, thinking about your target audience. So for peer learning activities, this should be the residents in your area. For building-wide learning activities, this should be the entire community or perhaps a particular population you're trying to reach. For example, if you're hosting an RA interest meeting, that would be directed toward, obviously, people interested in the RA position. But you really just want to use your individual discretion as to what your target audience would be. So in our example, I've decided to open this program up to the entire rental community. Oops. Did not copy the correct thing there. Let's try that again. There we are. Okay, and now on to the biggest part of this proposal, the detailed summary. So we mean detailed. One way to think about your description is this. You should write it in such a way that if at the last minute you got sick and were unable to facilitate it, another RA should be able to step in and facilitate it based purely on that description. You want to provide an outline for the flow of the program. If you're bringing in an outside partner, verify that you have spoken with them already and have provided an overview of the information they will share. If you're utilizing outside resources, explain those resources and where you obtained them. If you're engaging in a reflection activity, you might list the questions you plan to ask. Your description overall should demonstrate that you have thoroughly developed and thought out your learning activity before submitting it for approval. Better preparation on the first draft will ensure that your program is well planned and prepared, and it saves you the time of having to rewrite an inadequate description. So I'm going to read to you the example description here, which will also be included in a separate document attached to this module. Build a Bowl will be a progressive ice cream social in which residents will visit all 9 floors of Reynolds while meeting the RA staff and members of Hall Council. The common room on each floor will be set up as a separate station where residents will get an ingredient for their ice cream sundae. Residents will start on the 8th floor where they will get their bowl. They will then make their way down to each floor, adding ingredients, and will receive their spoon on the 2nd floor. The stations will be as follows. 8th floor the bowl, 7th floor the ice cream, 6th floor chocolate syrup, 5th floor sprinkles, 4th floor whipped cream, 3rd floor cherries, 2nd floor spoon. The RA at each floor and one or more Hall Council members will staff each station. Before residents can get the ingredient for that floor, they must introduce themselves to the RA and hall council members present and to share a fun fact about themselves. After the residents receive their spoon, they can go down to the ground floor where we will have music and board games. CRL John Doe has agreed to be the DJ and will use the speaker system from the HRL resource room. Additional hall council members will set out the board games prior to the start of the event and will be in the recreation room to get the party started. So as you can see here, this is a very detailed program description that could easily be replicated by someone who didn't actually plan the event. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that over. And I will note you may have to do some formatting once you copy and paste these things over in order to make it easy to read. So just be mindful of that when you're copying and pasting information from a Word document. Our next step is listing responsibilities, and this is where you delegate the task if multiple people are involved. So if you're collaborating with another RA, hall council, or campus partner, this section is crucial to understanding everyone's assigned tasks. Communicate in advance with your partners so that there is a clear understanding of the assigned roles. Poor communication or failure to delegate tasks effectively can result in your activity falling apart at the last minute. So for our example, hall council is responsible for sponsoring the ice cream and toppings. They won't actually purchase it. They will be providing volunteers to staff each station as well as the social area and the recreation room. The RAs will be responsible for making the advertisements and signage for the event and staffing the stations on their respective floors. Finally, our CRL has agreed to be the DJ for the social, purchase the supplies as they always will, and reserving the speaker system. So I'm going to pull that right over here. And again, you'll see that the formatting is a little wonky here, so you'll probably want to clean that up before you submit it. Moving on, step 10, why is there a need for that activity? This is where you provide justification for why you're doing the activity. Learning activities should not be based solely on whims or personal desires of the RA. They should be based on an assessed need of the population to which the activity is directed. How might this activity benefit your residents? In our example, during the first 6 weeks of the semester, it is important for residents to feel connected to UNCG. This program is a great opportunity for residents to meet each other and start forming connections that will help them adjust to college and feel at home in their community. In addition, this is an easy first event for hall council to help plan, which will allow them to plan future learning activities on their own. So, very simple justification for the activity. I'm going to copy and paste that over here, and then we'll move on. Our next step, consider the objectives of the activity. As we shared earlier, all of our learning activities should have a purpose behind them. What are you hoping to achieve? What will students learn as a result of participating in this activity? It may be helpful to list your objectives as bullet points. In our example, residents will meet all the RAs and hall council members in Reynolds. Residents will connect with at least one new person on the hall. Residents will feel more connected to the community by meeting more of their peers in a social setting. So you can see there we have three well-defined objectives for this program. And also, as you can see from this, even a seemingly social program does have an intention behind it. Of course, you can't use this as a justification for all of your programs to be social. We do want you to diversify the types of learning activities you are providing. Finally, step 12 takes us back to the focal areas. Consider what you've learned about the focal areas and the meaning behind each one. Be thoughtful in your selection to make sure that the learning activity you've described does in fact fit the description of that focal area. You may be asked to justify yourself if the connection is not clear. Remember that you can choose more than one focal area if the activity covers more than one, but it's perfectly okay to just have one if that's all that it covers. You don't get extra points by covering more than one focal area. Be true to the activity and what it achieves. So I'm going to select student engagement in this particular case because this program is all about getting students connected, and the other three don't necessarily apply in this case because we don't see elements of those in this proposal. So now that that's done, I'm going to submit it, and that will send it on for approval. And once your supervisor approves or denies your event, you will get an email to that effect. So it's important to make sure that after you submit your proposal that you see this little proposal submitted text up here. If you don't come back to the screen, it's possible that your computer timed out or for whatever reason the proposal didn't go through. So you may want to follow up with your supervisor to make sure that that happened. So that concludes our tutorial on learning activity proposals. We hope you found it useful as you prepare to submit your first proposal. Remember to consult your supervisor for any supplemental expectations regarding learning activities or the proposal thereof. With that said, good luck and good programming.